modifiers. So yeah, so let's get started. So today we'll be discussing about access modifiers. So what are the access modifiers which are available as part of Java? So that we are going to discuss it. So let me just pull out Paint. Okay. In similar terms, now you can see this is kind of like a Java application. Within this, we have a package defined, and within this, we have two packages. Okay. One is like pack1, pack2. Okay.
So I'm not able to see your screen.
Now, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, no. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I think I shared. Okay. So now you can see this is kind of like a Java application. Within that, we have a package. Okay. Let us take this is a project. Okay. So it's a project. And this is like package 1. This is package 2. Okay. So package 1 is kind of like content. Okay. Whole classes and interfaces that will be inside the package. Okay. Within that package, it's a template. Okay. It's within that package, we have a classes is called a template. Okay, so likewise we can have interfaces and we can have classes. Okay, so here I'm going to take this one as like class A and class B, and here it's a class C and class D. Class D. Okay, so we are talking about access modifiers and we'll define what are those access modifiers and how can we access these modifiers. Okay, so here you can see I'm just drawing a simple table. So this table will help you to understand what are different access modifiers. Okay. So generally, these access modifiers will help you to access the members of that particular packages, classes, or methods. Okay. So now you see if we have like 4 types of access modifiers, this public, let's write it here, public, default, protected, and we have a private. Okay. So public can be accessed anywhere. Okay. So it can be like, let us take, just draw another, let me take another simple. Excel file, it will be faster for us to understand. Okay. So here I'm going to write it as like public, default, vector, private. Okay. So here I'll just, so public can be accessed within the package. Okay. So it's, let's say that pack1 and pack2. Okay. So pack1 and pack2. So this can be accessed anywhere. Okay. So we'll say yes and yes. So default can be accessed within the package. Okay, within the package, not outside of the package. Okay, so let's consider this one as like outside of the package and this like inside of the package. Okay, so outside of the package, so let me just show you like pack1, within pack1. Within pack2. Just write in pack2 subclasses. Okay. So this can be accessed anywhere. Okay, so within pack1, pack2, within pack within. Okay, so just I'm writing this with within pack one, within pack two, because to differentiate the this default one. Okay, so let us take like within pack one. Yes, so we can able to access. Okay, so let me just remove this thing, so otherwise we can just keep the confusion. Okay, now you see within pack one, yes, anywhere within the pack one we can access this default. Public is like it is accessible anywhere in the project and outside of the project. Now you see, but default one it will be allowed only within the package. Outside of the package, no. Okay, outside of anywhere in the pack one, no. Protected, yes. So outside of the package, no. But package in the subclasses, pack two in subclasses, okay, through the child classes. Okay, I'll tell you how to be exactly use it. But here private is like nowhere. Okay, so it's yes in the class and not outside of anywhere. Okay, so public is like its scope is like wider than any of the access modifiers. Okay, these access modifiers will help you to limit the access of that particular member of the class within the package or outside of the package. Okay, so within package we can access all the variables or methods or classes that we have declared as like public. But default is like if you are declaring something as like default, that will be that its scope will be within this particular class, within the particular package. Okay, so if I'm defining something as like a default, then it can be accessed in class A and class B, not outside of the package one. Okay, so protected is like it can be accessed within the package and outside of the package, but within the subclass. Okay, so within the subclass, if, for example, if class A is extended by class D, then here we can access that variable is in the class D object. Okay, class D object. So private is like it is limited within the class. It cannot be accessed outside of the class or outside of the package or anywhere in the project. Okay, so it cannot be accessed anywhere. So these are the access modifiers. Okay, let's look into this access modifiers in detail. So this is like simple table, so which will help you to understand the access of that particular members. Okay, how do we access and how do we limit the access of this particular members? So let me take an example here. So here I'm going to create a separate package called access modifiers. Dot pack one I'm creating. Dot pack two I'm creating. Let me delete this one. So altogether we have two different packages here. Okay, so fresh in pack one, say access modifier pack one, I'm going to create some classes. Okay, so class A. So in this class A, I'm defining some variables as like public int A, public int B, and then I'm writing public void test class A. Okay, class A is the method that I'm creating. Say I am coming from class A. I'm coming from, just going to write a name called class A dot. You're just using some method to understand I'm coming from this particular class. Okay, so same thing I'm going to create here. I'll say class B. Just changing the things here. Okay, so here I'm changing the method as like class B. Okay, so I have like class A, class B, and this is what we have defined here, right? So when you go to the package here, so pack one have a class A, class B. Okay, so class A, class B. Likewise, we have okay. Let's do one thing. Control C. Just I'm pasting this files here. Okay, so I'll name this one as like class C. This class C. to rename this. I'm just renaming this. And here I'm going to change its name to class B to class D. Okay, what we'll be discussing here. So public, right? All these things are public. Okay. So public class A. Okay. So when I say public class A, this can be accessed anywhere outside of the class, outside of the package also. Okay. Now you see, I'm trying to create a main method in the first. I'll try to create a method within the package so that we can see again. Yeah. Now in class B, right? So now you see what I'm trying to do. I'm not extending anything here, but I can class A, C is equals to new class A. Okay, CA dot. Now you see, I can able to access all this. So what are the things I can able to access? So I'll try to print those values here. CA dot A. CA dot B and CA dot class A. Okay, now you see, I can able to access it. When I just go and try to execute this program, so what is happening in this case? I am coming from access modifier dot pack one dot class A. So this is what it is coming from, right? So we can access outside of the class within the package. Okay, so let me put this here. Now I'm going to copy the same thing here and within outside of the class. Okay, so outside of the class and outside of the package also. Now you see, when I execute this, it's saying that, what is it saying now? It is saying that I am coming from modifier class, modifier pack one dot class A. But what is this? This is a package 2, right? So what is it doing now? It is importing that particular package. Okay. So particular package. Now, if you want to do the same thing in class D, so that is also quite possible. Okay, we don't have any issues here. So now it says like, now you can see this particular, whatever we have defined as like public. Okay. So this can be accessed anywhere. Okay. So this can be accessed anywhere. So now what I'm going to do is like, I'll create something as like default. Okay. Something as like default. I'm trying to access. Okay. Let me delete this thing. So it will get confused. So here, now you see. So in pack A, I've defined this one as like default. So if you are not putting anything here, by default, what it will do is like JVM will assign it as like a default. Okay, take it as like a default. Now I'll go to class B and I'll try to access that. Okay, so what is that C value I need to access, right? C is a variable that I've defined. Observe carefully, guys. Now you see, I'm going to execute this. We don't have any value here, so let me assign some values so that we can understand. Like A is equals to 10 and B is equals to 20, C is equals to 30. Okay, otherwise A plus B or something. We can just want to add something to it. Okay, so now I'm going to the class B and it's what is the default value here? We have C is the default value or default modifier. Okay, access modifier. If you are not defining anything here, we are going to call it as like default modifier. So I want to print the value of C here. Okay, so again, I'm going to take one thing here, class A sum. Value of C is okay. So because I just want to define it as like a default. If you are not putting anything here in front of the method, then like whenever we are defining as like a method and declaring as a method, here we are not putting anything as like access modifier, then it will take it as like a default. Okay. So now let's go and try to access that also. The CA dot sum. Happily everything is getting accessed. Let me go and run it. Now you can get 10, 20 and C is the value of A plus B. And here also we are able to access both the methods because both the methods are like, defined as like one method is defined as public, another one is defined as like a default. Okay. Now we try to access the same thing here. Okay. So now you see outside of the package, CA dot sum. It is not listing dot sum. Now you see what is that it's going to throw. It will say the field class A dot C is not visible. Okay. So here also it will say that the method sum from the type class A is not visible. Okay. Not visible because what we have discussed here, within the package we can access the default members, but outside the package we cannot access. Okay. Outside of the package we cannot access. So this is fine. So let me do one thing. I'll go here and I'll try to extend class A. Okay. I've extended the class A. So now what I'm trying to do is like create a main method. And here I'm going to create object for the class D. Okay. So this is nothing but subclass. Okay, CD is equals to new class. I'm going to put same thing here. I'll go back to this class B and I'll try to copy everything from here. And I'll just try to put it here. And I'll say this is class B. This is class D. So what is happening here? Class A, whatever we have defined. Okay. Class D. Here we are just changing the variable name. Class D. B. Now you see what is happening now? It says like the field class A dot C is not visible. Okay, because this is like we are extending the properties of class A and we are making those members as like default. Okay, so it satisfies the second rule. Okay, first rule is like sorry, the three rules we have like pack one, we can access anywhere. In pack two, within package, we cannot access. Okay, within package in subclasses, we cannot access. So this is like default. Default is only limited to that particular package. Within that package, you can access anywhere in any classes. Okay. So now we look into the protected. Are you clear about this, guys? Public and default. Public is like it can be accessed anywhere, but default is like it can be accessed only within the package. If you are defining something as like a default, we cannot access outside of the package. Okay. Outside of the package, within the package in subclasses. Are you clear with this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So next is like we'll be looking into the protected. So I'm going to the class B and I'm defining another variable protected D is equals to 100. Okay, so enter D is equals to 1. So now I'm trying to print the value of D. Okay, so let me create one method called protected. Okay, protected. I want to subtract value of D is equals to C minus D. Okay, some operations we are trying. Now I want to call this member and this method. Okay, outside of the class. Now I'll write here. So both of them are public. Okay, so both of them are public. So here this one is default. Now here it is like protected. CA.D happily accessible. And here CA dot, what is that? Subtract. You can happily access this also because let me copy these things. Public default protected. Okay. Now let's go and execute this program and see what is the output. We don't get any issues, right? A value, B value, C value, and D value. These two are public, this is default, and this is protected. Okay. Happily, we are able to access everything. Okay. Let me copy the same thing here from this class, and I'm going outside of the package. Okay. Outside of the package. So here I'm going to create a main method. Let me just take this, what is a B class, and just copy. Okay. I'm going to the outside of the package. Like outside of the package is the pack2. Okay, pack2. Let me just. So what do you see here? Default and protected. They are throwing the error. The reason is like default and protected cannot be accessed outside of the package. Outside of the package, anywhere in the class. Okay, anywhere in the class. But there is a one condition for the protected. Okay, one condition is like cannot be accessed within the package, like outside of the package in the class directly. Okay, in the class directly. But if we are going to call it as like in a subclass, when we are like extending some classes, for example, if you are extending this particular class, which is defined as like a public, for example, class is like defined as like a public, and I'm just trying to extend a class here. In this case, what happens is like we can able to access it, but directly. Now you see what I'm trying to do is like I'm trying to create object of this class A. So this class I'm extending. Sorry, I'm just importing, not extending. I'm importing the class. I'm trying to create object for this class. Okay, it will throw the error. Okay, it will throw the error directly. We cannot access it, but the condition is like go to the class D. Now we have created object for this class D, right, which is extending the class A. Now you see, if I'm going to call cd.b, it is not throwing any error. Okay, so this is nothing but now you see within pack2 in subclasses. We can say in subclasses or through subclasses. Okay, through subclasses we can access. If you are defining something as like a protected, and if you want to access it through subclasses, it is possible. Okay, through subclasses. Now you see cd.sub. Now we don't have any error, but error gives only for the default. Okay, so defaults cannot be accessed outside of the package anywhere in the class. Public can be accessed anywhere in the packages, outside of the packages, inside of the package, everywhere it is like accessible. But protected, okay, protected can be accessed outside of the package through subclasses. Okay, not directly. Within the package, we can access it anywhere and outside of the class, but through subclasses. Okay, but there is a condition through subclasses. So how this can be achieved now? See, now extending the class A, and I'm creating object for class D, not class A. If I'm trying to access the variable using our variables or members of that class using the object of class A, it will throw the error. But class D, it will not throw the error. Okay, now you can see class D, and happily I can able to access this particular data member. Okay, and the method also. Are you clear with this, guys? So directly if you go and try to create, it will throw the error. But when you are extending it and trying to access it, it will not throw any error. So it will happily allow you to access it. Are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's the last one is called private. So this is very easy and very restricted. Okay, to understand. Is equals to 200. Okay. So I'm declaring private. It says like see what it says. The value of specified class is not used anywhere. Okay. So now because we are not using it anywhere, so that is the reason why it is showing. Now I want to print the value of this particular thing. So what I'm going to do is like I'll try to create a private and I'll print it. Private void print value. Okay, this is a method I'm just doing print value. So it will give some kind of warning there here. Okay, so you can easily understand. So why is it doing that? Value of is says like never use locally, but we can see how can we make it as like a kind of a method which can be accessed outside of the classes. Okay, that I'll show you. Now you see class A, I defined it. Now I'll try to access in class B. Okay, so it's a private and I'm trying to define it class B. So A, B, C, D, E should be displayed here, right? E, another one is like print value. Where is that print? There is no print. Dot E, no. The reason is like it is limited to that particular class itself. We cannot access it outside. Okay, let me go and try to create an object for that class and try to access it. Okay, class A, and I'm creating. Now you see CA.E. It will show here. Okay, the reason is like this cannot be accessed outside of the class. Okay, if you are defining something as like a private, that is private. I cannot access it outside of the class. ca.e. Now you see, you can able to access it. If I want to print or call ca.print value. Okay, it says like, what is the syntax error? Insert, okay, variable declaration. So okay, I'm not storing it anywhere, right? So directly I'm using that. That is the reason why it was showing the error. Now you see, I go and execute this program, so you can access the resolve problem. What is that? Okay, so we have to close this one. Now you see, e value. Okay, but there is a question, right? Like we cannot create object for this, but we want to use that particular value. Okay, this is defined as like a private. So how can we do it? We can call it through any of the method which is defined as like public, void, default, or protected. Okay, so you can call them in this. Again, this is subjected to the access modifiers. I mean to say that if I go here, I'll go to the D class. Let me just comment this. And let's see what happens here. So this is the value of E is 200. Value of E is 200. So from which class we are getting? We are getting it from the class A. This class A, when we are calling it outside, see, we are not directly using this particular private member. We are calling it through some other method. Okay, so we are calling it here, and it's kind of like it is accessible only through, like when you are trying to call with any of the modifiers which is satisfying the conditions. Okay, so protected, or you can say public, void, and protected we have defined. Okay, so based on that accessibility, this method will be called. Okay, so outside of the class, how do we access the outside? How do we access the private members or private method of that particular class? Is like we can call it through any other methods here. Okay, so now you go here and you can say class B. Now you go and execute it. So it will be available everywhere. See, 200, 200, and 200, because we are calling it here. So class A we have, in some we have, and we have some. All these are defined as like a public, default, and protected. You can able to access it. Okay, so when we go to this class D, here also you can able to see that E value, because we are calling that particular method. Through that method, it is coming out. It is not directly accessible. Okay, which is not directly accessible. So this is all about public, default, protected, and private. Okay, so these are the access modifiers. Are you clear with this, guys? Do you want me to explain it again?
Can you please explain for private once again?
Yeah, private is like private cannot be accessed anywhere outside of the class. Okay, outside of the class, you can, I just said like, within a package inside the class. It's, you can call it as like inside the class. Let me just add one more thing here. So that will be easy to understand. Set. Okay, so inside of the class, outside of the class, no. It cannot be accessed anywhere outside of the class. Only if we are defining something as like, I just want to show you like this is a little advanced when we are talking about how do we access the private members outside of the class. Is like we can call it anywhere in the method which we have defined as part of this class. But directly, if I say, for example, if I want to access this, okay, so if I go here in class B, if I say ca.e, we don't get it. Okay, we don't get it. The reason is like we cannot access it outside of the class directly. So indirectly, in the sense, we can call it through any one of these methods. When we are putting this, like class A. In class A, I have defined in class A, you can see I'm just calling this print value. Okay, print value, it will come here and it will execute that. Okay, the thing is like you cannot directly access these private members outside of the class. So if you want to use it, you can use it, but you cannot see, for example, if you see that E is equals to 200, if we are defining it as like a private, you cannot change the value of it. outside of like, directly you cannot go and say that, so for example, you see, I'm defining int some ff is equals to ca dot e. So this cannot be accessed. Otherwise, if you want to say that ca dot e is equals to override some value, that will not happen. But this can be done using, like for example, ca dot e is equals to, I'm overriding this value 300. Now you see what is the value of a actually? Actual value is like 10. Now when you execute this, see what is happening in this case. CA value is like 300. Okay, so we are able to override the value of A. Okay, likewise we can override if we have access to that, but we don't have access to that particular A value, right? So it's kind of like private. So this cannot be visible directly to any other classes until unless we call it through any of the methods which are defined as part of that particular class. Okay. So simply you need to remember, within package inside class, everything is accessible. Within package outside the class, public, default, protected are accessible, not the private member. And within package inside classes, any classes, okay? So because we are taking outside of the package, right? Classes, yes, public can be accessed, default cannot, private cannot, protected cannot, and private cannot. Okay. So through packages, like through subclasses, okay, packed through subclasses. Then here public can be accessed anywhere, and here default is like we cannot access outside of the classes, though it is like a subclass. Okay, but here protected we can access through subclasses. We are extending or we are creating object to that particular subclass and we are trying to access it. Here in private, no. Okay, so this is a simple chart that you need to remember, guys. So this chart will help you to understand how do we exactly access this access modifiers. Members of that particular class or methods using the access modifiers. Okay, are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so you can do a simple practice here. You can create the packages and try to just take this as like in a kind of a basis and you can just cycle. Okay, I'll just remove this. So to avoid the confusion, just I want to show you how do you exactly call the private members of that particular class. Okay, so to show you, this is kind of like little advanced, but you need to understand. Sometimes you see we are going to use the getter setter. In encapsulations, we are going to discuss about it. Okay, so how do we use this getter setters? I'm going to show you. So that is the advanced topic that we are going to discuss. Okay, so let's get into the other topics as we discussed yesterday. So we looked into the access modifiers. Then we'll see that what are the abstract classes. Okay, so what is abstract class and what are the things that we can specify as part of abstract classes, that we'll see. We define polymorphism. Here I'm going to create another package. Dot abstraction. Have we created this abstract abstraction?
No, inheritance and polymorphism.
Yes. So I'm just looking at it. It's showing some error, right? So it's not allowing me to name it as like abstract. Now we'll see that abstract class. This is very, very important, guys. Very, very important. Please try to focus on this. Okay. I'm defining class now, public class. Okay. So here I'm defining int A is equals to some 100 and int B is equals to 100. And now I'm going to define public void sum. If a method has a body, that is called as like concrete. Okay, concrete method in the sense it has got a body. Okay, so see, I'm performing this operation here. A plus B is equals to, it's going to give the sum. But I'm not sure like the public void subtraction. Okay, so I'm giving the visibility like, okay, now I'm only performing this particular class will only perform summation. Like for example, it's going to do the addition. Subtraction, there can be another method, like only method I'm defining it as like a subtraction. Okay, so I'm not sure like what is the implementation of this. Okay, how do you exactly implement it? You would say like a plus b minus b, a plus b or something, whatever logic that you want to put. I'm not aware of it. So this is nothing but data abstraction. Hiding the implementation of that particular method or particular object is called a data abstraction. Okay, data abstraction is nothing but hiding the implementation. So I know what is that, how exactly you want to, like what is that method that you want to create, but I'm not sure about what is the implementation of that method. Okay, so when we discuss about like vehicle is like a generic entity, but how do you implement, like vehicle can be anything, like it can be commercial vehicle, it can be a passenger vehicle, it can be a like two-wheeler vehicle. So that can be like anything. I'm not sure about like what is the categorization that you want to do, but I'm sure that that is a vehicle and it has a engine and it has a make model. Okay, so those are the things in case of like, vehicle, when we take it as like a generic object. I'm not sure about the implementation, but I know what exactly the thing that you're looking for. Okay, for example, you see, I have a vehicle, I'm looking for a vehicle with make, model and engine. Engine can be 100cc, 120cc, 200cc, 3000cc. I'm not sure about what is that exactly implementation. How exactly you are going to implement it. Okay, in that case, we are going to go with the abstraction. Okay, now you see, so it's going to show you like this method requires a body instead of a semicolon. See what it is doing is like it's going to use two quick fixes. One is like add body, otherwise make it as like a abstract. Okay, change subclass to abstract. Okay, if I make this one as like abstract, now you see. So we need to, what is it doing now? Let's remove. See what it did. So whenever we are defining any one, at least one method in a class as abstract, then we have to mark that class as like an abstract class. Okay, if you don't mark it as like abstract, then it will again throw the error saying that you have to remove the abstract modifier from this method. Okay, I want to make a method as an abstract. In that case, I have to surely make the class as like an abstract. Okay, if you are defining any at least one method, okay, at least one method in a class as abstract, then that class should be marked as like an abstract. Okay, so this is I will write the rules here. Okay, so we'll write the rules one after the other, so it will be easy. So what is that? What are the rules of abstract classes? If any one of the method is marked as abstract, then class should be declared as a abstract. Okay, so this is the first rule. And next rule is like abstract classes can have concrete and abstract classes, implementation and without implementation. Abstract methods, sir. Okay, so these are the two rules for now. We'll see what are the other things also. Are you clear with this, guys? So if we have any one of the method declared as like abstract, then the class should be made as like abstract. And what is the use of abstract classes? To hide the implementation of that particular method. Here why are we hiding the implementation? Because for example, now we are making it as like a vehicle class, and if we are implemented, for example, Tata is implementing this class. Okay, so how do we implement that particular method? Implementation is like, I'll show you. I will see, I will define the abstract class and I'm going to take other class now. Okay, so this class is like, I'll say it as like, I'm just naming it as like implementation class. Now you see, how can I now, you see, how do I use that particular properties of that class actually? Okay, how do I need to use the properties of that class? So we have two ways. One is like implement, another one is like inheritance. Okay, to inherit the properties of that class, then what I have to do, what I have to use here? I have to use the extends keyword, extends abstract. Now I get the error here. It says like, boss, you are trying to extend the abstract class and there are some methods which are not implemented. Okay, because it is like hiding the implementation. Okay, we are hiding the implementation. That is the reason why we call it as like a data abstraction. Okay, now you see, I'm hiding the implementation. To implement this, what you have to do is like, you have to add unimplemented methods. And you see, subtraction, only the subtraction. Now I am going to implement the body of that particular method. Okay, I would say A plus B. So as we discussed, right? Now you see A plus B minus B plus C, B plus A, or minus A minus B, whatever it is like. Just I'm trying to implement. Now what happened? Now we have this method, concrete method and abstract method. So abstract, this particular class is extended and you are providing body to this particular method. This which is called as like abstract in this class. But we are not declaring this class as like abstract. Okay. So if you declare this class as like abstract, that is like different rules. I'll tell you how do we exactly do it. Now you see what is happening now. It is, now you can see implements. It says like implements. It's not overriding. Okay. So what is overriding? What is the difference between override and implement is like implementation is like we don't have any body for this. For example, if you want to override, let me take the same sum class here and I'm putting it here. Now you see there is a symbol called overrides. This is like implementation. Implementation will be done when we don't have any body specified to this particular method. Okay, particular method, but which is marked as like abstract in this class, and we are implementing it. This is a new one. Okay, new one in the sense this is being implemented here, but this is already implemented, but you want to override the behavior. Okay, you would say that something I'm not sure, like I don't like that implementation. I'm going to change its behavior. I'll say that A plus B and A plus B. Now what I'm going to do, I'll create object for this class. Okay, I'll create object for this class. How do we create object? Over here we are going to see IMP. Let's go to new. IMP.sum. IMP. See, go and execute it. You'll see the different behavior. Okay, subtraction is like 100 showing and sum is like 600. What are the actual values? It's like 100 and 100. But here I'm changing the implementation. Now, can I go and create object for this? Okay, I don't want to have this behavior. Okay, you have like created some behavior which I don't like it, but I want to create the object for this class. Okay, so here I'm going to create the object for the abstract class. APS is equals to new, because I want to call the methods which I have defined over there. Okay, because these are concrete methods and you are implementing it or overriding it. Okay, so we are trying to override it. I don't want to do that, but I want to access my class abs.sum. So what is happening here? See, cannot instantiate the type object class. Okay, when I go and try to execute it, it will throw the error. Okay, so it says like cannot instantiate the type class. So the another rule is like we cannot create object to abstract classes. Object for abstract classes. Okay, so this is another rule. So that is the reason why it is throwing the error. Okay, it is throwing the error. Let me do one thing. ABS. Now ABS sum again. Okay, I'm just removing this one. Go and execute it. 100 and 600. Okay, so let me just show you. So from where these classes are coming, see, abstract class sum. Here it is from abstract class sum. We have created object for this reference variable of this particular abstract class. But what is that object that we have created? See, what is the for which class this will be pointing now? Reference will be pointing to this class. Reference will be pointed to this class. So we can do this one. Okay, but this is not a good practice. We have to create object for this class itself. Okay, so still we can have reference for this class and we can access. This is nothing but this is referring to this class, but object is created for this class. So that is the reason why we are able to call these particular methods. These methods are coming from, see, from which class it is coming from? It is showing that subclass. Okay, so here also you can see it is showing that it is coming from the sum class. But this is not a good practice. Okay, what we have to do is like we have to create object for this particular class itself. Okay. So let me just show you like from where this is coming out, implementation classes. Okay. So there is no point of doing that. Okay. If you can create, you can still have the reference to that abstract class and you can just access it. Okay. For example, if you are not implementing something here, for example, you see, I'm going to have something called division. Okay. Division, and I want to yet we have created object for this class and this particular method is not available in this implementation class. We can still go and access that. Okay. Because we are extending the abstract class. In this case, now I want to create reference to this. Now you see it is coming from abstract class. If you say it is coming from abstract class, but still we have two ways to access that. Okay. Sometimes what you see is like, now I want to override the implementation. Override the implementation which is done in this abstract class, in this class. Then what I'm going to do, I'll say, just giving percentile over. Here I'm going to give division plus b divided by a. See what is happening now? I can see this is overriding and this is getting implemented. I'll go and execute it. I'll get some set of results here. But now this is coming from implementation class. Okay, this is coming from implementation class because we have overridden the behavior of this particular method. Okay. So I'll put this one as like divide. This is nothing but it says like third rule. What is that? We cannot create object for abstract classes. Okay. So these are like abstraction, data abstraction rules. I'll just write. Abstraction. Okay. So now you see, observe carefully, guys. This is another catch here. Okay. This is very important. Now you see, I will go and try to create a constructor. Okay. Do you see here? There is an error. So it's like add constructions to the implementation class because we'll be initializing the instance variable of this particular abstract class. When you're extending, you should feel the responsibility. Okay. So super comes here. Super is the keyword or else constructor it will come. Super constructor is like it's going to call the parent constructor. Okay. So parent constructor here we have a parent constructor. So in this parent constructor, we are going to have the two parameters that you have to pass. Okay. If you are implementing this particular class, you should have the responsibility. Okay. This particular class should take the responsibility of providing the values to that particular instance variable. Okay. So that is the reason why we are going to use this super. Okay. If you are not using the super, it will throw the error. Okay. So it will throw the error because you are trying to implement the implementation of this particular abstract class, and but you have some constructor which is defined as like a abstract class. Okay, which is defined inside the abstract class. You don't have like an abstract class. We cannot create object for that abstract class. In that case, we cannot call the, or else we cannot initialize the values to the constructor, to the instance variable. Okay, of this class. Okay, so in that case, what happens now? It will throw the error. You should like if you are not providing any values, or else you are not initializing the instance variable of this abstract class, then how can I perform the actions? We have some concrete methods. How can I perform the actions? How can I get the values of this particular instance variables, or else we cannot use them? Okay, that is the reason why it is throwing the error here. So what can we do is like we can pass the values. So how do we pass the values now? In implementation, we are going to give 20 dot some values. Okay, so here we are providing values to. Now you see what happens. This will be called nothing but this constructor. The current class constructor will be called, and it's going to provide the values, and these values will be taken and it will be supplied as a parameter. That's supplied as a instance variable. Okay, these are nothing but these two values will be taken and it will be supplied to the abstract class. Now this will get initialized and you can perform the actions here. Okay, now you see I'm going to remove the sum and division only, I'm going to provide body to the unimplemented class. Now I'll go and execute it. Now you see the results here, 10, 50 and 0. Okay, so a plus b is like 20 plus 30. That's nothing but we are calling this sum and we are providing it. And here it is like a minus b, okay, something like whatever we have performed here. What is the subtraction that we are trying to do? So this is like, first is like subtraction, sorry. So 10 minus 20 are whatever the actions that I have just created, like operations that I'm doing, and I'm getting it as like result. But sum is like, it's like 20 plus 30, it's going to be 50, and division is like some value it's showing, okay, 0. So remainder of quotient is showing, okay. So now what is happening in this case, you can see we can create the constructor of that, we can create constructor for the abstract class. This is nothing but the next rule, okay. We can create constructor for abstract class. Constructor for abstract classes, okay. So this is the another rule. Next rule is like, observe carefully, I'm making it like private abstract see what it says now. Abstract method in type abstract class can only set to visibility modifier one of public or protected. Okay, public or protected. So what it says like private, if you are declaring some method as like a private and abstract, this is not possible. Okay, so we cannot declare like this. Let me take another one. Public. As it said like public, okay. So public and protected I can use public void test. Yes. Next rule is like, see, the method requires a body instead of a semicolon. So why it is showing this error is like, now final, if you are making this particular method as like a final, and you cannot override that, right? So we already looked into the override methods. Okay. In abstraction also, if you are making something as like abstract, okay, so we need to declare it as like abstract. Sorry, I did not mix it. I missed it. Now you see. So what it says like the abstract method type is abstract, can only set visibility modifier one of public or protected. Okay. So we cannot declare any method as like abstract if their access modifiers is private, and if you are using any final. Okay. Final, this cannot be overridden, and private method cannot be overridden. Okay. Private methods and final cannot be overridden. Let me take another one. Is like static abstract test one. Again, what is the error now? Here, I'm going to get the error. The abstract method test one is type only can set visibility modifier are one of public or protected. So what it is saying is like return type. It says like return type for the method is missing. Okay, so let me add return type here, and we can see what is that error again. Now you see the abstract method. So you can see these are the rules. Okay, private abstract. It's not a combination, it's a correct combination. So it's invalid combinations. Private abstract, final abstract, static abstract. So these are invalid combinations. If I say protected abstract void, this is valid combination. And other one is like, if you are specifying it as like a default protect one. So this is also valid combination. So next is like public is like anyway valid combination. So what are invalid combinations here? Private abstract, final abstract, static abstract. Okay. So these are invalid combinations. This is another rule that we have to keep in mind. Okay. Methods declared as private, final, static, along with abstract is invalid combination. Okay, so invalid combinations. We cannot declare a method with private, final key, final or static keyword along with the abstract. Okay, if you are trying to make it as like an abstract, then it will not allow you to do that. Because see, what is the use of this abstract method? I'm not sure about what is the implementation of this particular method, but I know the method. Okay, I know what is the method that you are going to use. But how do you implement? I'm not sure about it. That's nothing but data abstraction. So in that case, what we are doing is like we are making it as like an abstract. Okay, if we declare any one of the method as like abstract, then we have to define the class as like abstract. Abstract classes can have both concrete and abstract methods. Okay, so these are like invalid combinations. You can take it as like invalid combinations. We cannot have these things set. So now in implementation class, we can create object for that particular class. Okay, and other thing is like we can have constructor can have a private constructor can have a abstract class can have a constructor. I'm sorry for that, guys. Just give me a second, guys. I'm getting a call. Yeah, okay, guys, I'm back. Okay, so these are the rules, guys. So I'll just save it and I'll try to send it to you. Rules of data abstraction. Okay, so I'm going to send these things. So these are the things, guys. So still we have other things. Now you see, we have marked something as like, now you see, I'm going to mark it as like a default. Okay, so here in sub, I'm providing it as like a public. Again, the same, it's like combination of both overriding rules also and abstraction. So overriding, what we discussed about overriding, when the scope of this particular method is default, we can increase the scope of it. We cannot decrease it. Okay, for example, if I make it as like a private, it will throw the error because we cannot increase the scope. Decrease the scope. Okay, cannot reduce the visibility, reducing the scope of that particular value. Okay, so if you are making it as like a default and if you are putting it as like a private, it will not accept, but you can increase the scope. Okay, so when you say public, it will get increased. Okay, so protected is also greater than the default. Okay, if I say default, that is also quite possible. Okay, now you see here we have something else like protected abstract, that is possible. And here also, if you say default is like it is reducing the scope, it says like reducing the scope, we need to increase it. If I say public, then it will be like increasing it. Again, other thing is like if I make public final, this is also possible. Here it is possible. Okay, after overriding, you do whatever you want, but before overriding, if you want to make it as like a final, it will not allow. Okay, again, the other thing is like public static, this will not allow. The same rule applies again. Okay, so it will say that see overrides and implementation super type method, so we cannot mark it as like a static. Can we make it as like a private? No. If we reduce its scope, will it allow? It will not allow. We have to increase its scope. Okay, not reduce. Public, I say public void sub, it will work. These are the rules, guys. Okay, so these are the rules we have to remember. Another thing is like if I try to pass the parameters here, now it will ask you to have the parameters defined here. So what is happening here? So we have defined the protected parameters. It will ask you to implement it. So we have another method which is defined here. So what is happening? You have created two methods. One is like subtraction and it's like auto generated. Now we have another method which is created here. So you can see one is overriding, another one is like trying to implement its value. So here I'll take this value. So here what I'm doing is like I'm trying to access the same values from the values that we are supplying as part of like a parameters to the constructor. Okay. So here what I'm doing now, I'll take the same logic, but this time the logic will be different. So what is that? A minus B. So if I try to call it the IMP dot subtract it, we have two values here. Okay. So you can pass whatever the values that you want to pass here. So that if you want to access it through this super dot, so we should be able to access it. 1 second. Yeah, IMP dot can get the values of A, comma. Okay, so still you can take these values and you can just see again. You can use super dot A equals to A. So this is what again you can access those variables, whatever variables that you are getting, that can be overridden. Okay. So super dot B equals to B. So what I'm trying to do here is like first I'm taking some parameters. Okay. So here I'm taking these parameters from this particular class object. That's the what object I'm trying to access. So this is the way that we can use to access the variables of the other classes. Like, whatever we are trying to extend this class, right? We can access the variables of this particular, class into this class. This is one way. Another one is like we can use a super keyword also. Super dot A is nothing but it is referring to the value which is coming from the super class, the parent class. Okay. So this will be taken as like a parameter. For example, if I'm putting here some 250, comma 350. So what is the output that I should get when I try to call this? It should be like 250 minus 350. Okay, let's go and execute. What is the output that we want? What is happening here? 100. So which values have been taken now? So in this case, super dot A, super dot B. So what we are trying to assign these values to the super A. Okay. So when I go and try to access this particular things, otherwise we can do one thing is equals to, you can assign the values super dot A. And here in reverse, I'm doing it. Okay. Again, reassigning those values. Super dot B. Observe carefully what is happening now. Minus 10. Okay. So minus 10. This is nothing but 30 minus 20. That's taken. This is overriding the values. From where I'm going to get these values? I'm going to get these values from the abstract class. This constructor is called here. Okay. This constructor is called. It's going to give the supply these values to this abstract class, the instance variables of this abstract class, and these values are being called here when we are trying to execute it. Okay, with the help of like super keyword. One is like we discussed about super constructor, which will help you to initialize instance variables of parent class, and other thing is like super keyword. Super keyword can access the values of our data members of that particular parent class. Okay, so parent class data members can be accessed using super keyword. Constructor can be accessed using the super constructor. Okay, so these are the super constructor and super keywords. Okay, still I don't want to confuse you guys. I'll just remove this. We'll discuss about these things, but rarely we use them. Okay, so if you want to access the data members of any extended class, then we can use super. Current class, we can use this keyword. For example, if we don't have any these keywords here, this unlike instance variables are not defined here. So if you want to define them, we can define here. Okay, so here we are defining it, and then what we are trying to do is like, now we can have the constructor created. So we have created the constructor. Okay, so now I want to assign the values. This A is equals to A, and this dot B is equals to B. Okay, directly I can pass this as like A comma B because we have those variables here defined. Okay, it should be like a static. So it is static. Now see all the values that we are coming, as part of like this study. Now you see int a comma b, we are supplying this value. Good. Let's go and try to execute this program now. See what we are getting now. We are initializing the instance variables of parent class, and we are assigning this particular variables, whatever we are getting as part of constructor call, to this particular variables of this class. That's nothing but instance variables of current class, instance variables of parent class can also be initialized. So this is nothing but, guys, these are the extra rules that we are talking about. So what we are trying to do is like we are trying to initialize the instance variables of parent class as well as like current class. Parent class can be done using the super constructor, and current class can be done using this keyword. If you want to access the data members of super class, parent class, then we can use the super keyword. Okay, how do we do that? Is equals to, now you can see super dot a. Okay, if b is equals to, we can use get the values of current class, we can use this keyword. Super is like it will come from the, see now from where it is coming? It is coming from the abstract class. B from where it is coming? It is coming from the, okay, this will say that, it is called static context, that is reservation. But you can see it is coming from the current class. Okay, so this is coming from the current class. If I say, if I remove the static, we can easily understand this. Now you can see this is coming from the implementation class. Okay, so we can remove this. This keyword is also like we want to access them. What you can do is like we can pass the parameters. Otherwise, you can say this dot a, comma. Oh, this we cannot use in this context. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this we cannot use in this context. But here we have to pass the values. You say a comma b, directly we can call with the help of like implementation dot ta. So that's nothing but through the object that I'm trying to call, imp dot b. Okay, again it is same thing that we are trying to access the values of the access the instance variables along with the values. Here passing it, we can do it this way or we can do this way. Okay, but this will be appreciated, or super will be appreciated only within the context of the class as well as like context of the methods. But here, if you try to access it to static is like little different actually. Okay, so it does not require any set of objects or constructors. So that is the reason why it will not allow this, and super keywords cannot be accessed inside the static context. Okay, so guys, this is what we have discussed about the abstraction, and we have certain rules here. So these rules we have to follow, and along with that, I've showed you like what is access modifiers and how do we work on the abstract classes, what is implementation, what is overriding, what are the different rules of overriding and abstraction, and when do we use it. So all these things we have discussed today. Okay, so practice this, guys. This is very important in case of interviews also. They are going to ask you, and all these things keep you need to remember all these things. Okay, so they may ask you sometimes, okay, can we override private members? No. Final? No. Static? No. Okay, can we increase the scope of this particular method during the overriding? Yes, we can increase. Can we reduce? No. So these are the few things, guys, we have to remember. Okay, so they will ask you like, can we create constructor for abstract classes? Yes, we can create constructor. Then what is the use? You can see that there are some concrete methods which are there in the abstract classes. To if we initialize the instance variables of abstract classes, we can use them here. It is not complete abstraction, guys. Okay, 100% abstraction can be achieved only through interfaces, not through the abstract classes. Okay, we'll discuss about interfaces and encapsulation today, tomorrow, and we can conclude OOPS concepts. But what we have discussed so far is like we have discussed about access modifiers, inheritance, polymorphism, and data abstraction. Okay, and constructor also. Now we'll be discussing, like in the next class, we'll be discussing about interfaces and data encapsulation. Okay, those are like simple topics now. So complex things we are done with those concepts, but you have to remember a lot of things. And it will be like, when you practice it, you'll come to know how do we exactly use them and what is the use of abstraction and other OOPS concepts. Okay. So guys, this is very important. Please practice and revisit this video and try to understand. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay. So if you don't practice, you'll forget. There are a lot of things that we have to remember. Okay. So and a lot of combinations that we have to remember. Okay. I will upload this document and along with the file that we have discussed, right? Rules and the classes also I'm going to upload. Okay.
Okay, Shekhar. Thank you.
Thanks
Okay,
for
sir.
your time. Yeah.
Bye, sir.
Bye.